And then this is, explain this, Deb. This was the article in the book, Article 28, that we voted and passed, but can you give a little synopsis of it?
That was all about, right now we are with MEMIC for our workers' comp. MMA has never been allowed to come in and give us a quote because it was never voted on, and apparently this has to be voted in order for them to come in and offer any quotes, so that's why we had to put that article in. And I would say maybe, I'll ask her if we're gonna continue that article. I would think so,
Year.
but
Okay.
yeah, I'll find out.
Alright,
But that's just giving them permission if we wanna call them this year and check pricing, which we do quite often,
Okay.
so, not with them, but
okay. So do we have to,
you need to sign that, yes.
where do we
All
need,
of it.
all of us, or where do we
Yeah,
need
I
to
would
sign?
say, yeah. I'll fill in the dates up top for
Right
you
here.
guys.
And while that's going around, I have something to read to you. Lovely little card, Pennings from Penny. This is Penny Peasley, whom I miss dearly at these meetings. To Carol Jordan and members of the Clifton Municipal Boards. Thank you for the recognition extended to me in the town report this year. Although I volunteered to give back to the community because I've been such a lucky penny in my life, I feel honored to be acknowledged and pleased that you even noticed. Penny Peasley. So, yes,
I need to miss
certainly.
that.
We do miss her.
Um,
She's still around and she's still making fudge.
That is while they're signing.
Yes,
We had the petition signed about the alcohol being served at the Boy Scout camp for the parties.
yes.
Eric, I believe we have to now have public hearings on that. So I posted the public hearings for land use amendments. Do you feel this is part of that, or do we have to call our own public hearings, or can we incorporate with you with that, I wonder?
Well, I think
Instead
the
of-
public hearings, I mean, I'm just guessing they're gonna take a while. I
Right,
don't think it should be part of the land use ordinance. I mean, because it's a separate thing, because actually in the land use ordinance, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know we had to go through this process either. We actually have provisions in the land use ordinance for establishments that sell alcohol and things like that in the site plan part. But I guess I didn't know that you had to do this other step, what you're doing, until they brought this up about across the way.
right.
So nobody's ever come in front of the planning board to ask to do that in town.
Never had that issue.
Right.
It's
So-
always come to the select board.
Right, we've been signing permission to have weddings and affairs at the Boy Scout camp, and because the building is in Clifton, the commissioner found out we never approved that, the legislative bodies never approved.
But like right
that.
now, for example, I don't even think that technically we're allowed to have like a Cooleyville Farms restaurant in town that serves alcohol.
That's in Eddington.
I realize that, but if somebody,
Oh,
if a
yeah.
business like that came to town today
No, we
to
couldn't.
do a site plan, technically, I guess we're not allowed to
Right.
approve to serve alcohol,
Nope.
which I didn't know.
Right, so we have two petitions, one is for Monday through Saturday, and the other is for Sunday, so one or the other could get voted down very easily, so
I think you should just have a separate public hearing. And how many public hearings are you required to have?
I would say probably two. I'll
I
check
mean, I don't know what the
on
rules
that.
are.
Yeah, we've never had to do this.
Well, you could have them back to back if you're saying, so you're saying 2 articles to 2 hearings, is that what you're saying?
Right.
So you could have like one that starts at 6 o'clock and goes to 7 o'clock for the
Oh, I see.
Monday through, or Saturday, and then one starts at 7 o'clock
Yeah, that makes
for the next one, or however you wanna do it.
sense.
You're saying that in the land use ordinance, that you can't have a building that serves alcohol like a restaurant? Oh,
Right,
isn't this
no, actually,
amending that?
No,
Excuse, no, say that again. We're allowed, in a site plan ordinance now, it's set up so that somebody could come into town and request a permit to do it. However, technically,
the
what I just
commissioner
found out in the
stepped
past couple months, we can only approve them to open a restaurant that serves, non-alcoholic beverages.
When-
So if they wanted to tap or sell alcohol, then we would have to get this ordinance passed in order for a restaurant to set up and do it, which, like I said, I didn't know.
Yeah, when that
That's
was-
what I said, isn't
when that
the
was-
ordinance she's talking about?
No,
Okay,
it's
then
completely
you
different.
have-
One's a license from the alcohol,
From the state.
from the state for whatever the Beverage Control Commission or whatever it is, that's a completely different thing.
different.
So you're gonna have to do this, if somebody comes in, you're gonna have to do it every time?
No, this will
No.
allow for the town of Clifton, for anybody after this.
If I could add something to that, years ago, I had a restaurant, I owned a restaurant in Peterborough, New Hampshire.
the laws were different down there because you're purchasing, that product, as an owner there. You still, however, have to get your permit for your
Right,
liquor license
state.
for the
To the
restaurant.
state,
Opening up a restaurant's one thing, or establishing a business there.
right.
As far as the town ordinance, as far as the town's concerned, the city's concerned, like you said, if it's established, essentially established from the onset, I think it's a one-time thing
Right,
to where you
it
have
is.
to do that, so. that's
I already
probably
went through
why.
that with him, he was very nice, so I went through our land use ordinance, I said, I know we have it in here somewhere, but it doesn't
I think
matter.
that's how it works.
Right.
So we end up doing an ordinance that says yes, you can, and he's got an
For a
ordinance that says
building
no.
or a business, but the state doesn't recognize this town for selling or providing
That's correct.
people alcohol.
That's correct.
What we're
So-
getting, Cindy, is we're getting
You're
things.
getting permission from the state.
Right.
We get
Okay.
these things from like Just Catering,
Yeah.
that they want us to sign, giving them permission to serve alcohol at the Boy Scout camp.
Yeah,
That's how
And
it
we
came
have
about.
been approving it, but we didn't have this.
Technically,
The
it's a dry
state, the
town.
state issues the license, but the state can't issue the
Right.
license.
But you're
Yeah,
right,
the town hasn't ever voted to allow it to
it's
happen.
established
Right.
that way.
Right,
So
exactly.
once-
That's
once
exact- that's
it's
exactly it,
established
Nancy.
That it's known
So really?
and the permit or the license is, given to that person who has that establishment or whoever's doing it.
The town
They-
would recognize.
so
When
once
I
you
worked
get
for
public
CLA,
hearings, you're gonna have to
we
go to
used
special
to
town
get
meeting.
a punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's Paul? I was gonna say bad
Oh,
Paul.
yeah, they've given us a provisional right now because we've signed so many for this year, and they understand we didn't have any idea about this, so.
So do we know when, I mean, how timely does this need to be? Because we got a bunch of meetings and stuff coming up.
I'm gonna wait till the planning board gets done because they're giving us time. And he said, don't worry about it for the next few months or.
Oh, okay,
Well,
okay.
right,
Long
but
as
the
it's-
question is, so we don't have to have a special election for this. I
We
mean,
do.
how many days
Oh, for June.
for the
that's
June
right.
election? Like, how many days before the June election do you have to have the hearing? That's when, like, you should make sure you do it by.
Well, we have to have the warrant posted, 7 days prior to the meeting, election, so back up the calendar with 7 days in advance for each public hearing. So I'm thinking April, staggering between you guys somehow.
Do you have any, I mean, I have
Or
no
we
idea.
wait
Do you have,
till
is there any
November.
sense of how many people would be for it or against it? I mean, I
He
really.
said, if there's a lot of, I'm not putting anybody or saying anything about church or anything, it could get voted down very easily. So, that's the scary part, so I really would like a.
Clifton was a dry town for years.
I know.
Well, I mean, what about, I mean, you go right down the road on Route 1 and you go to Lucerne, for example,
That's in this town.
which establishes, all
Right.
that stuff, wedding and
Yep,
large grand scale. And if you're gonna try to bring something into Clifton to do something like that, to whatever it is, whether it's promoting the wedding or whatever it is, in my opinion, I don't think it's a bad idea, and I know it might be an ongoing issue to make these permits available and use your own discretion at that time to say yes or no. And maybe it might be an ongoing thing, but maybe that's how it has to be done, if that's what you wanna do.
So once we have these hearings and gets voted in, yay or nay,
then it goes up to referendum vote,
okay.
so.
No, we have the public hearings, no
Yeah,
vote.
They're just hearings.
No, I mean, we have
Hearings.
public votes, and then we have the referendum, and then that's a decision, right, from
Well, the
then on?
public hearings, we discuss it.
Yeah.
you know,
Discussed at the public hearing,
Right.
voted on in the referendum.
then referendum vote. So if everything went well, but I don't know, he might be able to allow us to go to November, but, because the ballot won't be so bad.
I don't have a clue.
I'll plead with him.
Well, the other
I
thing,
think we should do it ASAP, because.
the other
Get it
thing
over
that
with.
disturbs me
They,
is who
they use that building a lot.
Yeah.
For weddings and.
It'll just be a busy vote
all
for
kinds
June
of things.
with everything coming up.
Every town ballot and state ballot.
Yeah. But the planning board's got, they'll have their own referendum votes.
They'll all be on the town ballot.
Right.
John?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused. Are there 2 issues or 3 issues? The person that's renting the place needs to have a liquor license to sell liquor. That's a state license. That's one issue. Now, what you're talking about is for the town to allow that to happen. Is there a third issue in the
No.
ordinance? in the
No.
land use ordinance
No.
that they need to be permitted as a facility?
No, that's
By the
separate.
No, what I'm
Separate.
saying, John, is technically, like right now in the land use ordinance, it allows restaurants
Right,
that sell alcohol in the land use ordinance, okay? Or presumably would want to sell alcohol, okay? We just made the assumption that if you had a restaurant, we didn't actually specifically say you could sell alcohol, but we just assumed if you had a restaurant, you probably would wanna do that. That's common.
right.
So what we did not know when we wrote the ordinance, you know, we rewrote it in 2007 or 8 or 9, whatever year it was that we first got it approved again. We didn't know that we were basically enabling an activity that we needed a state license in town to do. We did not know that. So basically what's happened now is apparently we just found out we have to have the town has to give permission from the state to license people to do this.
So my final question is, do we have a restaurant through the
No.
land use ordinance in the town of Clifton right now permitted?
No, but we
So that's the
could.
third issue, that's what I'm saying,
Well, no, it's not.
okay?
Somebody could come into town and want to do it right now, and we wouldn't technically be able to, we'd just be saying, yes, you can open a restaurant, but no, you can't sell alcohol.
You're saying Boy Scout is a restaurant.
Well, what are you gonna call them?
They're
We're
not,
not,
they're
we're
rental
not
halls.
They're not a
referencing the
restaurant.
Boy Scout camp.
You call it a function facility.
It's a function,
Right.
it's
Okay,
a
so
facility.
do we
So
have
whether
anything
it's
in
a
our
facility,
ordinance
it's
for a
used for
function
another purpose.
facility?
Okay, I see where John's going, okay, so let's, now I'm tracking with you where you're going
Jeff's
with this.
Catering has their license. We have our hearings and pass this, that's step 2 that we know needs to be done because we've been told that. But are we still in compliance with, or are they still in compliance with the land use ordinance? is the question.
I believe they are, because they've been having functions there for a really long time. And when we rewrote the ordinance, whatever the date was, I forget off the top of my head, it said any activities that are already in place are grandfathered.
I don't believe that building is older than your ordinance.
No,
Yeah.
it's a
How
new
old is that
building.
building?
It's a new building down there.
It is? He says it is, so it is.
It's about
Right, all right, so we're going with
6 years
what
old.
Rick said, okay, so we're all good.
I wrote the permit for it when I first started here, which was before the ordinance was changed.
And they just did it a little bit, right? They expanded.
They built it, when we built it.
Oh,
Brand
mine
new,
been up there
beautiful.
forever.
You're in enough trouble now, you're on the board.
I talked to Mark about that.
Okay, we're soon to adjourn our meeting here. We're at the public access
Wait a
part.
minute, what are we doing with this?
With what?
With this?
No, sorry about that.
Did we decide on the public hearings?
Oh, I'm
and-
gonna shoot for June,
Okay, so June's the referendum.
yeah. I'm just gonna have to stagger around these guys somehow, the planning board, so it's not so confusing.
So we need to set up the public hearing dates.
Where is that June referendum vote? Is it the 7th?
This always a, what,
That
first
Tuesday?
Tuesday?
So the 3rd?
Second Tuesday?
I think it's a 7, is it the 7?
It's like on the 6th or 7th usually, first Tuesday.
The second Tuesday is the 10th. The first Tuesday is the 3rd. No, I can't either.
Can we get anything else? I'm like out of that loop.
It's the 10th.
Is it, what is it, Jess, the
Second
10th?
Tuesday.
Okay, all right. So 7 days prior to that is gonna put us at the 3rd that we need to post.
Oh, well, I'm gonna go, they have the 2nd and the 17th in April already.
Yes.
Cause you need the first one in case we need to amend anything, I mean, you gotta allow that time. So like 2 weeks after the first one.
Look and see what we have.
Not a Wednesday night, just try to do it for like this Tuesday maybe, or something.
We're gonna do it like back to back, the week and then the Sunday. You know, the same night,
You do the
Two.
two of them in the same night.
correct,
Right, but then we have to have a
You
second.
you just have to make 2 postings.
correct.
So like, say if we did it the 8th of April, the week after theirs,
Uh-huh.
and then again on the 22nd.
I guess that's time.
Sounds good.
And are those Tuesday nights or what?
Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights.
Wednesdays are getting to be much.
Okay, all right.
Why
Yeah.
can't you have it the same night as the ones that they're gonna have and just have it afterwards?
I'll have it first.
Or first?
I would have it first because that's not gonna take very long.
Well, I don't know that. See, that's why, actually, that's why I asked that question. I'm a little hesitant because I really want to give people time to talk about the ordinance if they want to. And And that's why I asked if she thought a lot of people would show up, and she's indicating that she thinks that a lot of people could show up. And I wanna make sure that people have opportunity to speak about it and don't feel pressured.
Right. I feel the same way. They really need to understand this, and
Now, the public,
plus I already posted theirs anyway, so.
the public hearing that we are going to have, we as a select board need to be knowledgeable about what it is.
Right.
Because I'm still a little fuzzy on it.
Yep.
So, if you can get us the information ahead of
So
time.
what's the 2 days for that?
8th and the 22nd.
At what time?
What's good? 6 o'clock, good?
Yeah.
6 p.m. Alright, I'll make a motion, we have the, what are we calling them, the liquor, public hearings for liquor
Licensing.
licensing, to be held April 8th and April 22nd, both at 6 o'clock here at the town office.
I'll second.
All in
All
favor?
in favor? I'm just still looking to make sure we have time here. Okay.
Okay, who seconded it?
I did.
Carol. That's gonna be a busy April.
Yeah, it is.
Plus we got schools.
Your budget hearings?
Oh, jeez.
Do we know when those are?
It'll be May.
Maybe somebody at night.
Because the letter said, look in April, but it's usually later than that, right? When's the budget put out? June?
In the
They vote on it.
May.
Vote on it, the
Yeah.
same, in the hard time.
Yeah, okay. All
They'll
right.
start in April, but the ones that people go to will be in May.
Yeah, okay.
Busy time of the year.
Scott can keep us apprised of that.
I certainly will.
I appreciate you doing this. You really know what you're in for. It's gonna be an astounding position. And don't talk to Jessie Gray to find her. She will discourage you.
My family, believe it or not, is involved with that, well, in another state, believe it or not, and involved in these particular issues and stuff like that. So I think I can certainly handle it and just communicate. That's what
Wow,
we really need to do.
appreciate it.
We
Thank
got
you
a
for
good
doing that.
backbone.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, like I said, you're dealing with Bangor International Airport, you're dealing with all your employees and stuff like that. It's tough. So
Yeah.
you deal with them.
Okay, next on the agenda is public access. Okay? I'm gonna go first, because I can. And then I hope everybody will also speak as well. And this is just my opinion, that I just feel I need to say. In my past career, I facilitated many meetings, some not so pleasant, some were okay. Many of these are about conflict resolution or address the elephant in the room. We have one of these solutions or situations I'd like to speak about, known as the elephant in the room. Many of the municipal officers have been subject to insinuations, accusations, and untruths about our management of the town. We have been called unprofessional, accused of taking bribes, being paid by a project developer, and many of these comments were stated publicly, written in editorials, blogs, and have been brought to the attention of the officers by reporting persons stating conversations that have taken place in town. I want to state emphatically, and I represent, I think, the multiple boards and staff of this town, that those are totally unfounded and hurtful. When emails are written and responded to with strong emotions behind them, it is very easy to hit the send button and never realize or care what the fallout creates, and then it becomes viral, and toxic. When integrity-driven and dedication to a job are challenged unfairly, emotions take over and it becomes very hard to separate business and personal. We are all human, entitled to our opinions, speak our minds, and express differences. Remember the First Amendment, because it still is there. Many times the delivery of said emotion causes just as much of an issue as the message itself. None of us have lost sight of our job as elected and appointed officials, and that is to do what the citizens voted us to, so to make informed decisions about what's presented. I want to reiterate the functions of the municipal officers, to name a few. Select Board Chair. I consider this to be the go-to person with concerns, complaints, or issues that need to come before the appropriate boards. to be the liaison for the office staff, for legal guidance, for MMA guidance, which is our governing body, as well as our manuals that we are given and need to re-go through every so often. Run meetings, keeping them on task, orderly, and efficient. Keep everybody as much on the same page as we can in concern to town management. The vice chair, ability to stand in when there is absence of the chair. The selectmen are expected to attend monthly meetings, and I would ask if they would notify the chair if ill or on vacation or unexpectedly unable to attend. Agendas are to be completed by Friday before the meeting, and the select board have an obligation to pick up their folders prior to the meeting and review and be prepared for topics of the meeting. It's pretty difficult, and we all have a habit of doing it if we can't get into the office to pick our stuff up and try to get up to snuff before our meetings begin. And many times these folders are full and it's difficult to do. We've all done it. We also have an obligation to manage the municipal finance, the management of public property and personnel. Our obligation also is to protect the health, welfare, safety of our residents with federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Also, the management of contracts and relations with other state and local agencies and the public. Our planning board, they are appointed by the select board. They have their own manual of duties and their obligations to their own board. The select board cannot tell the planning board what to do. The planning board reports to the select board and keeps them informed of land use matters and applications. In our office is the administrative assistant and the town clerk. Their job descriptions have many responsibilities, and they serve at the direction of the select board, namely the chairman, who represents the entire board. They in turn do not have the authority to resolve issues and are instructed to refer to the select board. They are the frontline people who listen to many unhappy and sometimes very angry individuals full of accusation and hurtful comments. This is not okay. I would ask that all involved in many unpleasant situations over the past year and past years attempt to remember to separate emotions from business. It is everybody's obligation in this room, no matter what you feel, believe, have heard, have said, that we need to move forward and do what is right for this town. I sat down and put together, I'm a very goal-oriented person, and no matter what type of an evaluation I ever had, it was always, what are your goals for the next year? I myself, going back over the town report, had some issues at the town meeting with our town report. Just clerical issues on amounts from one year to the next, about the auditor's report. I mean, some of those things that have been there for the past few years that we need to really get a handle on. I think another goal should be trying to update our town website. It's in the process. I think that's becoming a very good place for information to be dispersed and to see what we can put on there and what we want to put on there. Of course, there's Eagle Bluff. We had that brought up and it was voted on as in an article to go forward and look at what we as a town think we might do, but it kind of went off slant and off tangent because somebody felt we needed to spend money, we needed to do whatever. No spending of monies has been ever entertained. It is just something that one of our citizens have brought to our attention, and I think we need to just at least talk about it and formulate a committee. If that's the case, a couple people came up to me after the meeting and said they'd be interested in just talking about it. But of course, I don't know their names. There was one guy that was sitting in the front row. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I need guidance, and these are things we can talk about a little bit if you'd like to. We also have a disaster plan. Dave Cogdell was looking at that, needing to be updated. I don't know where we are with that, but my concern was when we had loss of power for 8 days over Christmas and it was very cold. We have a generator here. This certainly is listed as a warming center. And what do we need to do to make that happen? My concern has been that library, I know it's been here for a long time, but it's a mess. And that's just my statement. That's what I want to say. Because that back room, whether we could ever utilize or need to utilize that within some type of an emergency facility or not, it's full. So somehow we need to kind of figure out how we're going to do that and what the requirements are and what we need. We may not need anything. I don't know. Road work to be done. I'd like to see us establish some type of a projected 3 to 5 year plan. Dave is our go-to, Ed's our go-to person for that. I personally would like you to take me around the roads. just to see what's there, because I think we ought to have a plan in mind and some kind of a capital budget to look at. Communication in the town still remains something that I think is sorely lacking. We talked about a newsletter. This is Cindy Grant, who is a office clerk, right? Yes, in the town of Newburgh, who does a weekly little newsletter, an e-news kind of thing.
So, and it gives lists our meetings that are gonna take place and any events that are taking place. And we even put if a resident's gonna have a yard sale, we put a little blog on there, don't forget the yard sale at so-and-so's house. I got Debbie's email today,
Mm-hmm.
and I will put her on that list, so
Mhm.
she gets it, and she can, if I can get the rest of you, you'll all get it, you can
Mhm.
see it, it just keeps everybody aware of what's,
Isn't that like a 2-page flyer type thing where you could, at the Clifton store, even Eddington, or at key places, I guess, that you could just even print
Well,
out?
you can post it and,
You know what I mean?
print it and post it, but I think the advent of using email services, as much as I hate it in one aspect, because I'm old, but another way, it's, if there's something consistently that people know on Friday morning, I'm gonna get a little letter that's gonna say, okay, this is the week I gotta go to meeting A, B, C, or D, or I've gotta go to wherever. So, again, these are all things that are just up here. I hope all of you have some other issues as well. The last one is a summer social. I think we need something to bring this town back together. It cannot be a committee of one. I don't know how big it is, how small it is, what it is. We have, I think, a recreational budget that we can tap into if we needed to, but I think we need to do something that's fun. So those are my ideas. That's my 5 minutes. Nobody timed me. But I would
Can I add to that?
entertain this is your time to speak. Yes, go
I'd
ahead,
like to add
sir.
to that, in particular, specifically to that, to what you just said. It's kind of funny, I think we lived here for about 3 years. We rented first and we actually bought the land and stuff, Debbie knows, it's very low. And it's kind of funny because we live on Scott Point Road, and I probably know a handful of people there, and you wave and people wave back at you, and it's friendly and things like that. And when you actually meet them in person, then you get to know them, who they are, and everything else. But when you don't, and everybody's busy, and you know what you're doing, and you're off on your own tangent, and everybody's got a business or what they're doing, and there's nothing besides that. So I think that's a great idea because it just lets you know who's who and everything else. Because there are some nice folks around here, and it's instead of being so standoffish, I think it's a great idea to have a little more communication with people.
So you're probably willing to work on a committee then, wouldn't you? Scott Key, how do we say your name?
Joe. Yeah.
Jess.
He's gonna be busy.
He is?
Leave him alone.
Oh, now listen, see, she's in your back pocket already. Okay.
Mary might
No,
not
but I mean, I really believe in
Yeah,
that.
I do
I
too.
honestly believe in that because it took me so long just to cross the street. I mean, there are folks that move next door to us. They're a young couple, Pelletiers, and their father was, that show.
Vloggers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's his father.
Yep.
And he's a good kid, he's an HVAC, and she's a pharmacist, and they kind of keep to themselves because they're saying, they're like standoffish, I guess, is that the right way to say it?
Yeah.
People just don't have the initiative to go out and say hi, and they're doing.
Well, I think that's why I get excited when I have people that are interested in coming on board. I like Stephen and you stepping up. I've been here, this is going into my 6th year, and it's kind of like you tap into the same people to do the same things, and it just doesn't generate new interest and put some new blood into it, and it brings some energy to the
I don't
town.
care whether you're making $150,000 a year or you're making 20 or 10.
Right.
It's not the point. It's we all we live in a town right now where we know where we live, and it's beautiful.
We live here for a reason, and that's the
Amen.
reason that we all want to preserve.
And it's just that when things are good, they're good. When things
Yeah,
are bad,
yeah.
And I just believe in that. That's all.
Okay, all right, Teresa, I'm sorry, go ahead.
we haven't picked a time, but in considering location, are there places that offer, like, does Parks Pond opened up?
Golf course does.
The golf course,
There's a lot
Parks
of stuff
Pond,
going
or give, I don't know about the Boy Scout Club,
Yeah.
but depending on which has the most recreational facilities for families and kids to participate in, I think that would be a good thing to think about.
Yeah, and I think again, you know, to formulate anybody that's interested, to leave your name at the office, and perhaps we can form a committee to try to put this, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything grand, just to have, I mean, it could be just a barbecue, you
Anything
know?
does it right in their yard.
Yeah.
So,
You know, I talked
Simple
about
as
down
that.
behind Mary Bragg's place, I think that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
That's where they have the historical
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And that's where the old town hall is, that's where.
Well,
the
and that's the reason being, it's off 180, and that's where the historical and the old school and whatever else was down, the old town hall, so, that was kind of my thought, but does Mary own that, or who owns
Judy,
that?
Judy
Judy
Bragg,
Bragg.
and they're like good officers, so we can
Okay,
contact
okay,
them.
all right, well, I mean, that's one of
They
many
own
things
the
that
Her
we
son.
need to
I just was
decide.
wondering if the town would be considering promoting any businesses opposed to private locations in order to help bring notoriety, PR, or something to the economy that way. Something that was just,
My intent, I mean, it could go in what direction the committee wants to, but my intent is just to get together and bring people together.
Something fun, a
Yes,
fun day.
absolutely.
Carol, the best way of doing that is to have an open bar at our only restaurant. People will come.
We'll be there.
I second that.
But I just said it's a dry town.
John's got a bad bundle.
you better hurry up and pass the ordinance so that you can have your
Okay,
party.
all right, so this is your time to speak.
Maybe we should do it at the Williams Pit.
Anybody else? That's on Spring Pond Road, I'll tell you what. I don't know who was first.
I
Yes,
got a
Cindy.
couple of things, I apologize, I haven't participated for quite a while, but, I spoke the other day at town meeting, LD1. And I printed it out, we'll give it to you. And I see you both, you have some, on page 145 of your manuals, this is it. The application is behind it that we should fill out.
We have to, we fill this out every year. Mark does.
And we weren't over. That all comes.
So what is this, Cindy?
This used to be in the town report,
Yeah, I
and for
know.
some reason they got taken out and didn't get.
What it is that they passed a tax cap. It's pretty much a tax cap.
That's right.
You can only raise your budget from one year to the next so much, and this worksheet determines how much you can raise it. If you go over that, you have to have an article approving that overage. And that's, I don't know what happened to it.
No.
No.
Like I said, the last book I had really was 2003, that's how long it's been since I've been to town meeting.
That this was in?
Sorry.
That this was in?
No,
Or
that
just
I
this
had,
event?
that I had at home.
Shame on you.
I know.
Remember, this was the one that Audrey tried to get figured out, and we would always do the worksheet. I remember sitting down with Mark doing it.
Well,
Pretty
a
much
lot of
does
the
it.
marks, a lot of the figures come from Mark, but it's ultimately the board
Yeah,
It does this.
that does it.
In most of the years, we have not gone over
Over.
it, but we may have
this year.
But
Yeah.
it should
Last
be
week.
done every year,
Okay.
whether you go over or not.
And then
Well,
after
we'll do
It
that.
should be, this article should be in there every year. And I don't know why it went, I know it was
Yeah, I can remember it being.
since.
Yeah.
and-
Do we have a
Like down where I am
Show
now,
it.
we didn't go over,
Yeah.
we were actually $35,000 under last
Uh-huh.
year.
Yeah,
So when we got to that article, we left it in. When we got to that article, they just made a motion to pass over
Pass
the
over.
article.
okay.
But we don't take it
I
out.
don't know why it was taken out that.
So, I do have a couple other quick things.
Okay.
Two things that Bruce spoke of one, and I overheard Julie speaking of another one, that one is the easement to Bangor Hydro that was spoken of. We didn't go to a vote for that. Did anybody inquire?
We talked to legal counsel. We tabled it from one meeting when Bangor Hydro came in. And then we talked to legal counsel and we voted on it at the next meeting.
Legal counsel meaning?
I don't remember if it was
Town
MMA.
attorney.
I think it was both.
I think
We talked with that to see if we needed to go to a vote, and they said no.
I don't honestly, because I think that's a big personal liability on you guys' part. Because the decisions that the board makes are generally for a year. You guys can do contracts 3 or multiple years. But if you make a decision over that amount, 5 years from now, when none of you are on this board, and they try to come through there, and the board says, no, we're putting the gate up, and that board votes no, then Bangor Hydro can come back and sue the town, and the town's gonna go, we didn't authorize it.
The gates
That's,
say
that's,
that.
cor- that's correct, but the way they look at something like this is just like a property line agreement, boundary agreement. It's actually a deeded
Access.
document.
It's a deeded
and
document.
It's a legal document, and that's the way they were looking at it.
Right, but what I'm saying is, they weren't authorized to do it, because they're not authorized to do a deed unless they're selling or disposing property.
It's not what the
Not-
law said.
Well, I'm just saying, down the road, it's a personal liability. If you asked, inquire with MMA.
We did.
Because-
We did.
We did.
In 5 years from now, if another board says no,
They'd have to
Yeah.
change the deed.
They legally
No.
can't say
They
no.
can't.
Right, it's in
Why
the deed,
can't
that's
they?
what I mean, it's
They-
this board
deeded.
said yes,
Because it's a recorded instrument and both parties agreed, and so it's unlikely.
but
That-
both
that-
parties didn't, because the legislative body didn't agree.
So we didn't
Is
have
what
to.
I'm saying. I'm just telling you, I believe you
Cause
did.
we, yeah, I know, I'm just saying, cause we had no idea, so we said we better consult, we did the vote.
But
And they
I believe
checked
you
out
had
the
to. I don't believe you
agreement.
guys have the authority to sign
They got the
the lease across
contract.
the town. But what I'm saying is the personal liability down the road,
Yeah.
you signed the agreement. What if another board says, I'm not gonna honor it? And then the town gets sued, the insurance company comes in and says, show me the minutes where, and we'll cover you. If they can't show them that, the insurance company isn't gonna cover it, they're gonna come back on the people that signed the document. That's the personal liability I'm talking about.
Well, it should be in the minutes,
Oh, yeah, it's in the minutes.
everything's in the minutes,
But
and
they're
there
not
was
in
a,
the town meeting minutes. That's what I'm
Select
trying to
board
say.
minutes.
They're in select
Right.
board minutes. That's what I'm saying. That's what,
I believe
it's a
the
personal,
attorney
I
for
believe a
Hydro
personal liability of
also
the people that
contacted
signed
us,
that
and
document.
I'm
That,
pretty sure.
I mean, it may not, and it's nothing, you know, to me, I just thought I'd bring it to your attention.
What makes you think that, you know, when we've had 2 different consultations with attorneys that have said that that's what we decided to do? I mean, is that something that's
I
happened
don't
or?
believe that you guys have the authority to do it. I believe it's a legislative body decision. that has to be done.
personal opinion.
Well, partially.
Well, MMA told us different. And that's who we go to.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. I would, because I don't believe, like you said, it's a personal liability back. I just think
God, we
it's,
don't even turn our heads unless we ask somebody, honestly.
I would like to see it, that that's what they said. So,
I'm sure we have the emails
yeah.
or.
Can you call them up when you're in your office?
No, for the town of Clifton, I
No, I
can't.
don't mean to thank you, but when you're in the,
No, I can't call them from Newburgh for the town of
well, tell
Clifton.
them you got the same situation and.
The other
Okay.
issue is, the Williams money that came in. That should have been voted on by the town.
It was,
That was, she's right. That,
And I,
it didn't need to be voted on the town before we accepted it, but it should be in a warrant, and you can still do it at a,
you can do it
any
anytime.
time. But it's, you need to have, you
to
need to
accept
put it
gifts.
in a warrant,
I
saying
read
that the
it
town
in
accepts the
there.
money.
about
That's
the
all. And it didn't get done.
Just to correct,
Is that on the gifts? But I
because
looked
the
it up
town,
too.
the town meeting warrant is our history.
Yep.
That's how we keep track of stuff.
Yeah, this is what So,
How long ago, did we receive that?
July.
No, last year.
Last year.
I've known of towns to do a warrant and accept something that they brought into the town several years before. It
It's just a
never-
correction,
Just
just the
got
next
passed
time you do
over, it didn't
one.
get voted on, and they put a warrant in, asking the town to accept the money.
Different.
Can we do
Format.
But
this
the
in
thing
June?
is down the road 10 years, when there's nobody,
It has to be at a annual town meeting.
Okay, alright.
when there's nobody around and nobody can find the paperwork for that,
Mhm.
you got your town meeting minutes to know what your regulations and stipulations are for it.
Even if it was willed or part of the estate,
Yeah, any money that's, or property or anything that's given to the town has to be voted on by the town to accept in an annual town meeting.
Legally, you can't accept, expend, or overexpend a penny outside of what town
and
meeting
it's
authorizes.
very
you to.
specific what the state left, or what, how to use that.
That's why we have an article to accept taxes before they do. It's the same reason.
Yeah.
The town can't accept money if
Right.
it's not open.
Okay, anybody else?
Bruce has
Jess.
something.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Get back to
I'm
me.
sorry.
Yeah.
Jess was first. Jess was first.
Jess was first, Bruce. She had her hand up at the very beginning.
Yes.
I just have a question about the public hearings for the liquor licensing. Why do you need two?
I'm assuming we do, Jess, I'm gonna check,
I don't
but
think you do. Because
really,
there is no changing, it's yes or no.
okay, and that's what I was gonna look into.
I think she has 2 days, 2 periods. One's Monday through.
Not two separate
Separate
days.
dates,
She had two separate days, like you have two separate days? She had two
because
separate
they're
days.
gonna do amendments possibly. to
Right,
the
I'm going
first one.
2 days worth because of just the volume of material.
Yeah.
No, okay, I misunderstood. I thought that she was gonna all do it in one
I
night.
was gonna look tomorrow because I wasn't sure either, so we never had this type of
Right, you don't
hearing.
need to.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that would be good.
makes sense to me.
Bruce, go ahead.
I was gonna say, with regard to that easement that she brought up, I would think since last year you also voted in the town meeting to give the selectmen the authority to dispose of town property, I would think that would cover, because signing an easement is basically a disposal of town property in a way.
All the rights of it.
But either way, stick it in the warrant next year to cover
Right,
your, you know what.
Okay, well, we certainly need to check it.
Um, just two things. One thing I just want to recognize, because I mean, yes, this is like town government per se, but the towns are unique. They're not the same as like the Senate and legislature of the state, you know, or the federal government, because both of those branches, they have, you know, obviously they have the executive branch, legislative branch, and the judicial branch, you know, so they've got courts and police authorities and all that other good stuff. You know, whereas a municipality, we're like a little corporation, and you guys are like a board of directors for a corporation. You don't have court system, you know, you don't have, you know, police authority and all this other stuff, you know, like, you know, all that stuff, so to speak. So, I mean, there's some efficiency, so I do think, like, when you're thinking about, you know, what does government do for you, well, like we're like here, so the role of this type of a government is a little bit different than the role, you know, you should, to me, this municipal government should be more, you know, reacting and doing things, you know, within the community to support the community, because that's kind of the point of the municipal level of government, which is different than the state and federal government. So that's just kind of just, you know, my idea about it. Plus it says, you know, incorporated, and that's an implication of the corporation. It's a special kind of corporation. It's a municipal corporation. So there's just, I want to make sure that, you know, people do maybe look that up a little bit, because it's different. And the second thing with regard to the planning board, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for the board. I mean, I've got a couple of people here from the board tonight. You know, we're